Hey guys, my name's Mickey. I'm 22, and a giantess totally stole my boyfriend and ran off with him. I had to grow something like 200 feet tall, and I had to gain great muscle mass to stop this monster girl from taking my boyfriend and demolishing everything in her sight. I guess you could say I'm kind of a big deal now, but if I'm being real, this started as just a bunch of relationship drama, which was like the worst. Dale was drama-free, or so I thought. When we met, he seemed so chill. We met at school, in chemistry class. He was studying biochemical engineering, or something that sounded hard. And he was super smart. He wanted to spend his time curing diseases. And I fell in love with his ambition. He said that he actually transferred here because his ex-girlfriend was kinda stalking him. Oh boy, here's the drama, I thought. I kinda wish I didn't like him so much, but I did. I started to imagine what our wedding would be like, and then our children. I never used to fantasize about a guy like that, but there was something about Dale that was different, and I guess he brought out the romance in me. One night when I called, he seemed really upset, and he said that we might need to keep our relationship on the DL. He even said the phrase, cooling off, which kinda stung. I was just heating up, but now he wanted to take a step back. I took it personally until he explained that his ex-girlfriend was stalking him. Apparently, she transferred to our school too, and she was forcing herself back into his life. It sounded like drama, supersized. Part of me wanted to stay away from it, but part of me didn't. I didn't like the idea that this crazy ex of his was going to dictate my love life or even his love life. I came over to his apartment and I asked him directly if it was really over between them or if he still had feelings for this Kit girl. He said that he didn't have any feelings at all and he was trying to get away from her, but she was relentless. I warned him not to push me away because of her. I told him he had to show her that he had moved on, or she would never get the clue. She's really aggressive, he said. You don't understand. He was right. I totally didn't get it. Not until I met her. We were on a study date at the library, and that's when I saw her. His ex was a muscle girl, and tall, and intimidating. She told me I should get lost. She said Dale was her boyfriend, even if he didn't know it yet. I tried to stand up to her, but she was just so strong. And when she got in my face, there was nothing I could do. I knew if we got into a fight, she would legit mollywop me. And I started to understand. Then she grabbed Dale and forced him off with her. He was trying to get back to me, but she was too strong. Late that night, he called me. And he was whispering that she was pretty much forcing him in a relationship with her again, and he needed out. I told Dale she was a bully, and she had to be stopped. We argued about it for a while until he finally suggested a solution. He said that he was working in the lab, developing a muscle growth potion. Apparently, that's what got Kit started on her muscle girl kick. She tried it and developed huge muscles, and then she grew to like the power it gave her. Dale wanted to develop an antidote. He thought if somehow we snuck it into her food or something, she might lose her muscles and aggression. In the student lab, he was showing me some different concoctions, including a mega muscle growth chemical that had never been tested. He was trying to reverse engineer the thing to create a natural and healthy muscle atrophy, but he hadn't put it all together yet. What we didn't know was that Kit had followed us. She thought that Dale was trying to create muscle growth for me. And when we left, she snuck into the lab and drank all of that mega muscle growth experiment. And then all hell broke loose. We were on the other side of campus when it happened. At first, we just heard a rumble, like a jet engine. The ground was shaking and smoke and rubble was pouring through campus. We started to run to avoid getting hit by debris, but when I looked back over my shoulder, I saw her. Kit had grown to an enormous size. She was huge, hundreds of feet tall, with muscles like mountains, and they wouldn't stop growing. She was a giantess, a monster girl standing over the town, destroying everything in its wake. Police and security were no use. She was angry and eating cars and buildings. She was screaming and roaring, and the only word we could make out was, "Dale, I love you," over and over. She spotted us in the park and was coming for us. She tried to squash me like a bug several times, but I was quick enough to get away. But she split us up, and I watched her reach down and pick up Dale. She lifted him up to her face and was laughing. And then she ran off with him. Talk about big drama. This wicked giantess tramp was running off with my man. Normally, I would let the drama go, but this monster girl had to be stopped. Still, I felt helpless. I mean, what could I do? I was spinning my wheels until I got a call from Dale. There was terrible reception, but he was able to explain that she had him trapped in some weird bird's nest on top of this mountain and had caged him in. He was listing instructions for me to create an antidote for the giantess growth, something to bring her down to size. I was afraid I would blow up the place, but I got the ingredients and started cooking up this antidote. I followed the instructions, and I wanted to get it to these military masterminds that were trying to quell the situation, but I couldn't get them to take me seriously. Without their help, I realized I could never get the antidote anywhere near her mouth, and we were doomed. Meanwhile, Kit had grown into a full-on psycho monster. When I spoke on the phone to Dale, he said she threatened to eat people every day until he decided to marry her. He didn't love her, but he didn't want others to get hurt. Like I said earlier, normally I'd be the last person to get in the middle of drama. If somebody tried to stop them, she would toss them in her mouth like M&Ms and crunch them in half or swallow them whole. She was visiting new cities at night and terrorizing everyone. Some survivors talked about what it was like to be eaten, and the newspapers were naming Kit the greatest terrorist threat in the history of mankind. But others looked at her like a goddess or something and built shrines to her, worshiping her for her giantess stature. But Kit didn't care. She'd eat them as well. But how could I let something like this continue? If I didn't stop this crazy giantess, I didn't know who would. And sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. I decided that if she could drink a crazy muscle potion, so could I. Of course, I was terrified. But the hero inside of me was bursting forth like that Mark Anthony character on the PBS special. "Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war," I shouted before downing the potion. I got bigger and bigger, and I could barely make it out of my apartment before I burst through the ceiling. Out on the streets, I was growing into a giantess. The world below was looking smaller. And over the horizon, I saw Kit swatting down planes and smashing helicopters. I ran over to her and said I was here to rescue Dale and put her down. "Come at me, bro," she said, but I wasn't her bro or her sis. I was the girl that was going to stop her. She slammed into me without warning, and she wrestled me to the ground. I thought being a giantess would give me the power I needed, but Kit was just too strong, and she sent me packing. It wouldn't be so easy as drinking a growth potion. I would have to work out as well to make myself strong enough to face that monster girl muscle bully. And for the first time in my life, I had something to fight for. I used boulders as medicine balls, and I bench pressed sequoia trees. I swam against rapids, and I lifted destroyed buildings and strained to stack them back up. My muscles were becoming huge from endless workouts, and I was ready to try again. I found Kit downtown, destroying skyscrapers and dining on city folk. I hollered at her to unhand the innocent victims and be gone. She laughed at me and smashed a taxicab to demonstrate her refusal for law and order. Before she was done chuckling, I snatched her by her hair and slammed her onto the ground. People were running all around us, trying to stay clear. And the military was trying to keep everyone back as we wrestled around. Kit tried to pin me, but I was too strong for her this time, and I kept her down long enough to pour the antidote down her throat. Her mouth was fizzing, and she was crying out like a melting witch. Soon she was back down to size, and the authorities locked her up. But meanwhile, there was no more antidote for me, and I was stuck as a giantess. I found his cage in the mountains and released him. It felt strange being so much bigger than him, but he told me that I was his hero, and he didn't think he'd ever see the day when we could roam free as a couple. But now that day had come. Despite living as a giantess and having to fight against a crazy she-monster, the experience was well worth it because I learned a lesson I won't soon forget. Absence sharpens love. Presence strengthens it. I never loved Dale more than when he was locked up, and I was never stronger than when I was fighting for him. Have you ever had to fight for love? Tell us about it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.